Blase's record in progressive activism and peace activism around Southern California, around the country, is a very, very strong one. Blase has done fundamental work in Central America for many years. He was in Iraq right before the Gulf War trying to help with several people to try and come to some sort of peaceful conclusion before that war started. He was one of the main people then back here in LA working on the Gulf War Coalition. And what Blase represents for the Green Party is not only solid politics, and not only somebody who is very strong in the peace movement and the social justice movement and the Third World Solidarity movement, linking together with some of the other movements that have traditionally come from Greens. But in starting a Green Party and advancing a Green agenda, we try and empower a lot of different parts of our society, a lot of different approaches. Blase hadn't been a close organizer with the Greens before we qualified, but he's the kind of person that by having the status, we've provided a vehicle to bring him, his ideas and his character out to a lot of people, and he's become a strong member of the Green Party since then. So getting ballot status here in California, and then having somebody like Blase come into this vehicle and empower us and us him has really been a very positive thing for all of us. So I'd like you to welcome Blase Bonpane.
Congratulations to all of you for being here today and for being potential candidates yourself and for getting your ballot status and for getting a new direction in political history here in the United States. Remember how valuable a Wilkie button would be? I think they would be worth about $500 right now, right? Well, I have some Wilkie buttons in back. But they have my name on them, and they're under a folding chair back there. Any of that campaign literature that you want, you're more than welcome to take for your own experience. There's a folding chair on top of a cardboard box, and whatever is in that box, you're welcome to use and to keep for posterity. Our campaign was in the center of the burning city, the center of Los Angeles and the uprising. The secret to the organizing of the campaign was Ruth Shai. Ruth Shai was my manager. She had helped to organize the Nestle boycott throughout the United States. She had organized the GE boycott. She is an incredible force, and I hope the Green Party will be able to have her services in the future. I really felt in the sense of politics that she was the handler. I had nothing to do in terms of the administration of the office. She organized some 200 volunteers that were out there every day. She organized people throughout the area. We counted 40 languages. I think there were many more. It was an inner city area. Long before it began to burn, we had been talking to Koreatown, and Koreatown had told us that their main problem was Black-Korean relations. That was before the fire. After the fire, we went through the ashes and talked to the people about their feelings about this particular uprising, and we realized, of course, that the vast majority of the people in the 30th District were not registered and would not be registered because they were either undocumented or children or just didn't see any relationship, any reason to be there. I think the 25 points that were brought out so well by Kent Smith should be available to everyone, and the 10 failure points, etc., that's for every campaign. And so I won't go over those. I'd simply like to look at some of the directions I think that we can go from this point on. Because it's one thing to have a great campaign. There were 5 parties in this campaign. The Democrat won, a Chicano Democrat won. The Republican came in second. His campaign manager, a woman, came to us and said, would you like me to denounce the Republican before the world? And we said, no, thank you, and thanks a lot for coming by the office. So she was, she was very unhappy with her own person that she was managing. We came in third. Peace and Freedom was fourth, and the Libertarians were fifth. We were very happy about it, and we feel that the organizing that went on will continue and does continue. But what are the directions that I think we might go in the time ahead? I think that rather than simply being consumer-oriented in regard to the environment, that we have to become a lot more producer-oriented, not leaving the consumer, but realizing that we have to do both. For example, to understand the role of military industrial government not being environmental government. To understand that neoliberal economics are not environmental economics. To understand that a social economy can be an environmental economy. That the gauges that we've used in the past are useless. We talk of gross national product. Means absolutely nothing. You can have a high gross national product and have half your population starving to death. We need to use the new gauges and to make it clear that all we care about is gross social product, because it's the only thing to care about. It's the only thing we want to talk about. How is the education this year as compared with last year? How is the environmental situation this year in terms of the air, the water, this year as compared with last year? We don't care about the gross national product. We care about the gross social product. Okay, in terms of the military situation, I think our direction as a party has to look at something very firmly, that the military is at war with the environment in peacetime. Researchers at the University of Toronto, the Science and Peace Institute, have found that up to 30% of all global environmental degradation can be attributed to military activities in peacetime. U.S. nuclear arms facilities, weapons, and warheads are the greatest source and risk of nuclear radiation on Earth. The Pentagon generates more than 5 times the toxic waste produced by the 5 major U.S. chemical corporations combined. Germany's Air Force is responsible for 58% of the air pollutants generated by aircraft in the German airspace. We cannot neglect these issues by an excessive focus on consumer environmentalism. In fact, there are times when we may have to get our sense of humor working on that and tell people, you know, you can rinse out your paper towels all you want, and you can rinse them out and reuse them 15 times. And if you're not concerned about the waste going on in the military, you're going to waste your life rinsing out your paper towels. An F-16 fighter consumes nearly twice as much gas in 1 hour as the average American car uses. And the largest U.S. consumer could fuel all public transit systems in the United States for 22 years. That's 1 year's production for the Pentagon. The Armed Forces release 2/3 of all ozone-depleting CFC-113 that enters the atmosphere. 2/3 of it. This is in peacetime. Now, what about wartime? The military threat to the environment is far more dangerous, and its supreme indifference to environmental consequence is uncontrollable. We must recognize in the Gulf War, in which such a vast array of technologically advanced weapons and vehicles were used for an assault of unprecedented intensity, a warning to the world that the threat of militarism poses to life on this planet. I've just stolen these words from a new book. I ripped off every one of them. They weren't mine at all. They're from Ramsey Clark's new book, The Fire This Time, Thunder's Mouth Press, 1992. And where's Ramsey this afternoon? He's back in Iraq, surveying the departure massacre of George Bush. In the book, by the way, he makes it clear that the famous oil fires of Kuwait were started by U.S. napalm and fuel air bombs. What were? The oil fires of Kuwait. Well, why didn't you hear that in the media? Because the media is owned by the corporations. That's why you didn't hear it. The equally famous oil spills in the Persian Gulf that make the Valdez spill look like nothing, makes it look like a spit in the ocean, were our doing. They were not done by Saddam Hussein. Who documents this? The Attorney General of the United States under Lyndon Johnson. What are the problems in the Green Party? The same problems we have anywhere. The same problems we have with any organization. Perhaps the greatest problem in the Green Party for all of us, I speak for myself, would be self-righteousness. Isn't that the trap for everyone, in everything? It's a pain in the ass, isn't it? The second major party problem would be the perfectionists. Anyone who doesn't live on pure wheatgrass is going to hell. Right? Right. The self-righteous and the perfectionists will never do anything. They will do nothing politically because no one is perfect. They will do nothing spiritually either because they're living in a vacuum. Our quest is a spiritual quest. When students, throughout all the campuses that I spoke on, talking about what is politically correct, you know damn well what they were talking about. They were trying to find out what's morally correct. And when they're trying to find out what's morally correct, it's because they want to know what's spiritually correct. And they're seeking that in a corrupt environment that is putting them down for trying to ask what is politically correct. Let's go with them on that, avoiding the traps of self-righteousness, avoiding the traps of perfectionism, and say, let's go together and work very hard to say, yes, there's something politically correct. There's something better than yesterday. And together we can find it. The performance of the party must be non-sectarianism. I come from a religious background. Sectarianism is a drag. And we don't need it. We don't need it religiously. We don't need it politically. We don't need it in any form. And when we find it, let's put it down. We have to be macro-ecumenical. We have to know how to praise what is done by government in order to prove that we're not curmudgeons. We're not misanthropes. We don't just hate everybody. If we see a Mr. Clinton come in and do some nice things, let's be ready to praise each and every one of them and to make a point of that. But we know something else, and this is where it gets tough, and that is that you can praise any dictatorship in the world. You're allowed to do that, aren't you? There's no problem, is there? So the only measure of democracy actually comes from our ability to criticize, and to do so constructively. Sometimes in our culture, people confuse criticism with cynicism. Don't take cynicism from anybody about anything. Cynics, like perfectionists and self-righteous people, do not do anything. Intelligent critics can do something, to say this is what I think is wrong and this is what we're going to do about it. That is not cynical. That's intelligent criticism. That is why we have a university. We have to watch, I think, also in the party for pseudo-democracy. Pseudo-democracy is sometimes called super-democracy. I heard a phrase today, something about green time. Let's not do that. Why? Where did the Latin American tradition, I've lived there many years, of being late come from? I'll tell you what it comes from. It comes from the arrogance of the oligarch who says, what time is it going to start? It starts when I get there. That's when it starts. So if the meeting is called for 7 o'clock and I arrive at 9, it's going to start at 9. Why? Because I'm the boss. You follow? So the history of a lack of punctuality is an oligarchic history and an arrogant history. An 8 o'clock class starts at 8 o'clock. And that's democratic. Let's call Petra Kelly back from the deceased at this time and say, all right, Petra Kelly is going to speak at 7 o'clock tonight. The person who is going to introduce her then takes an hour and 10 minutes to introduce her. Then someone gets up and says, I have a few announcements to make, and makes announcements for an hour and a half. And then Petra Kelly is allowed to start her talk at 9 o'clock. Now, is that democracy? It is not. It's pseudo-democratic anarchy. And I want to say something in behalf of punctuality and of using time the way time is meant to be used. Because anything else is some kind of a fraud. And don't give in to it. We live in a time-oriented world. We heard earlier that the most valuable thing we have is our time. And that's absolutely true. What did we spend on the campaign? Because of Ruth Shai, we spent some $45,000. Oh, by the way, I'm out about $5, so I'm going to take up a collection now, and I would appreciate $5,000, please, from the Green Party, because in terms of looking for help from the party, I was like dealing with the invisible person, you know. Are you there? Where's the money we need? So we still are out. But yeah, we raised a lot of money. We're very happy about that. Had a lot of response from many people. Had a great campaign. So what I'm trying to say is, in the party, I hope that we have no obstructionism by those who think that anarchy is a form of democracy, that we have a respect for the common good, that we make an agenda, that we keep our agenda, that we don't patronize the neuroses of pseudo-democrats who think that they can really, say, manipulate something simply by virtue of changing an agenda that everyone has agreed on. I think all of those points are extremely important. Also, we have to deal with the lack of being patronizing to anyone. People came to me and said, my God, you're running against a Chicano. I said, well, what do you think I am? Some kind of a racist, patronizing individual that would say, oh, I won't run against a Chicano? Of course not. What could be more patronizing? If he has something good to do, let him do it. And he won, and we won as good friends. He never heard a word against him said by me. Why? Because he was an excellent candidate. I didn't like his party. It was called the Democratic Party. And I attacked that party for the entire campaign because it deserved it. It won it fair and square by being a party of military-industrial government. The same thing is said when people say, oh, in your race there's a woman. Yes, that's right. Now what am I supposed to do? In a patronizing way say, oh, I'm just going to back off instantly. There's a woman there. Not what woman, not what qualification. Just back off right. No, that's patronizing. And it's insulting. And don't do that. Because it's not necessary. It's not real. Of course we want to see more people of color. I represent the fading away of the most despised group in the world. White males over 60. We're on our way out. Everybody hates us. We've earned it. So please don't get into any patronizing traps. It's wonderful that you're here today. I leave with you the legacy of my campaign, which is in that cardboard box under, under the chair. And thanks a million for being here. So.